Research in Australia is showing at the moment over 1 in 10 Australians live in poverty with insufficient income to cover food and basic household expenses.
We've got individuals living in poverty or in low incomes, and they're often excluded from accessing mainstream financial services.
So in essence, those least able to afford it end up having to pay the most for access to finance. This is a key focus for the National Australia Bank, and the bank's Senior Manager of Community Finance and Development, Corinne Proske, joins us now with more. Just tell us a little bit about how prevalent the need for microfinance is in Australia.
Look, I think it's often underestimated or considered that we really need to go to the developing world to find people in poverty. There's actually a lot of Australians who live and go without life's basics. It's quite frightening, the number of people who don't have a fridge or a washing machine. So it's really supporting those families and those individuals actually get what we would all consider life's bare essentials.
So what sort of level of loans are we talking about here?
Look, we look at both individual and business loans, so it depends on where you're sitting and what your needs are. The vast majority of loans are under $1,000, and it's beds, mattresses, fridges, washing machines.
And yet these are people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get the money to buy a white good, for example.
We find a lot of them either rent these items, or they take out very expensive loans, or they just go without. We have seen a lot of families run with esky's to keep the milk and food cold.
Yeah.
And there's savings initiatives within all of this as well, because I mean you've got a range of programs, but not everyone wants to borrow. Some people just want to be helped to save.
Credit's not for everyone, and really looking at how do you reinstil a savings culture within our community. So we're really providing some incentivised programs. So if people are able to put money away on a regular basis, we'll actually match those funds. The results of this program to date have just been overwhelming in that we're hearing about some of the best Christmases ever, doing some healthcare issues, renovations, travelling to see family, just things that, again, most of us take for granted.
So in a way, what you build in a financial literacy program around this?
All our programs are really built around the concept that money is quite boring, and that if you actually add education through experience, people will become more confident in those processes.
How do you sell that to shareholders, though? Because ultimately you're accountable to shareholders at the NAB. Do they accept that financial literacy is a great thing for you to spend money on?
Look, NAB comes from the origins of banking people in the gold rush, and it's about providing banking services for all. Some of our mainstream products aren't appropriate for some of this group, but it doesn't mean that we leave them out. So we are able to show to our shareholders that this is part of providing a community service to all Australians, and that's actually everyone's responsibility.
So in a way it is about your corporate responsibility and sustainability.
And it's also our core business.
Yeah.
We lend and we...
Well, let me ask you about that. I mean, do you have to tell your shareholders, look, we've got this great program, it's microfinance, but unfortunately we have levels of high debt on it? Did you get bad debts being formed?
I think that is one of the key misunderstandings in this space. If you give people a little bit of trust, they'll actually repay it. And this has, we only have 1 or 2% in defaults. Right. So it's just trust people, provide them some structure, provide them the education, and the money comes back.
And I don't know how this works, but if someone's on a low income or they're living in poverty, I imagine it's quite daunting to walk into a bank and say, I'd like to speak to the manager, I need a loan, I've got no money, but, how can you help me? So how does that actually work practically?
We really couldn't do this work without a series of community partners. You're right in saying that a lot of people on low incomes aren't comfortable going to the mainstream banks. So we work through various partners. Our lead partner is Good Shepherd Youth and Family Service, but we work with the Salvation Army, Anglicare, Uniting Care. There's over 300 groups that work with us. And the services are often delivered through their offices, and then they'll come to the branch at the end.
And the message is that this is open to everyone and anyone?
Basically, you need to be on a healthcare card or on Family Tax Benefit Part A and have lived at least 3 months at the one address. And that's just trying to help understand what people's expenses are so that we're actually not providing them with additional credit and that they can't actually afford.
And when people have had one loan and repaid it, do you have people coming back for a second loan?
We've actually got some wonderful stories where we've had newly arrived Australians coming to the first loan interview unable to speak English. They're on their fourth loan. They no longer need an interpreter. They're actually getting their feet on the ground. They understand our systems and they're ready for the mainstream.
And is there any sort of regulatory or government context around operating in this space?
At present, there's no regulatory requirements, but we have had both state and federal government support in actually extending the reach of our programs.
Is that unique to Australia, or does that happen all around the world like that?
It's different. Each jurisdiction has its own kind of needs. In America, it's actually quite regulated, but if you kind of look at how separate and segregated their financial market is, where those who are left out are really left out, we don't actually have that kind of problem, so we have less of a need to kind of link together. And
is this going to be a program that you see will continue to expand?
We've been doing this for 10 years.
Right.
I've got great visions for the next 10 years.
One of Australia's great banking secrets, isn't it?
So, look, we are really only supporting the supply side. We're nowhere near achieving the demand. I think we're expecting, at the moment, we're meeting about 5% of the need. So, yes, there is a huge opportunity for what can be done in the future, and I plan on being there to help make it happen.
Corinne, it's great to have you on the program today. Thank you very much for joining Peter and I.
Thank you
so much.